I think at the time I was making like 120 grand a year and I was 22 years old or something.
That's not bad.
Yeah. And so I felt like I was living quite comfortably. But I sort of stagnated and I became like quite miserable doing the role that I was in. And so at the time I didn't have the self-awareness to realize that that was the reason that I was unhappy. I just thought that I was unhappy in the trade that I was in. And so that's when I moved across to being a personal trainer. I was like, this isn't my passion. Fencing's not my passion. I love going to the gym and I love helping people. So I'm going to be a personal trainer. And I found a lot of fulfillment in doing that. I became a personal trainer for 2 years. And I realized during that what I actually loved about it was not the personal training itself. It was the fact that I was moving towards a goal again and I was actually trying to achieve something bigger than what I had. And so that was where I actually found a lot of fulfillment. And the same thing sort of happened in personal training. I got to a point where I had a full calendar of clients and I started to become, depressed and miserable again around it. And that's when it sort of clicked for me. It's like, I actually didn't hate fencing. I hated the fact that I'd stagnated and I wasn't pushing myself towards any future goals. And fencing had always paid me more money. So I made the choice to go back into fencing and not sort of stop this time at just having a couple of employees. I wanted to just keep going and see how far we could take it. And that's when I approached my best mate, who I've been mates with since I was 7 years old, who was also in the fencing space. We've sort of done everything together our whole lives, and said, do you want to start a business with me? We'll give it a crack ourselves. And he said, yeah. And we had no business experience at all. We were just two tradies at the end of the day, but we had a lot of drive and we were willing to learn and put the work in. And we found out very quickly, around a year and a half into the business, we had lost, I think, around $200,000 in the business, and we didn't have any money to start with. So where did that $200,000 come from? It came from not paying our tax bill. And then the ATO garnished our account one morning, which means garnishing is they emptied our bank account down to $0. And that was a wake-up call that we needed to go, okay, we need to get our asses into gear. This is serious. We're on the verge of bankruptcy. And our accountant at the time was like, you guys have to get a business coach. There's a group over here that specializes in coaching trades businesses. So I recommend you going to them. And at the time that was
name drop, like,
they're called Pro Trade United.
Okay.
And at the time, that was a tough pill to swallow because we had no money, and then here we are having to fork out more money for coaching.
How much did they charge you?
I would say it's relatively cheap at the time. It was like $1,200 a month.
That's nothing.
But for us at the time, we had $0. So
mind negative,
yeah.
more likely.
So in order to do that, we had to take out credit cards in our personal names to do that and to continue paying our staff because we had no money in the bank. And it was, I think we were just aware that, look, this is do or die. We're about to go bankrupt, and this is our Hail Mary shot at actually turning this thing around and learning business. And so we just lent in as hard as we could with this coaching, and we took everything they gave us and studied, just studied every single night, read ebooks, watched YouTube videos, listened to other business people, and just learned as much as we could about business. And it wasn't an overnight turnaround, but
how long? Sorry,
I would probably say within 12 to 18 months, we had made all the money back that we had lost. So we were basically in a position where we had negative $200,000 net profit on the profit and loss. And then over the next 12 to 18 months, we had made $200,000 net profit. So we're back to square one.
Wow.
But, with a lot more business acumen and we sort of knew what we were doing. And I think one of the biggest learnings we had, obviously apart from learning how to read the financial data of a business, like profit and loss, balance sheet, age receivables, was, finding out who our ideal client profile is and going after that one type of client.
On the topic of accounting, how did you get the concepts of accounting? As in, I'll give an example, right? For myself, I actually didn't have any accounting background at all. Like, I'm Asian, but I'm very bad at maths. Okay, very bad at maths. So how I actually learned accounting was I actually read a book. I can't remember what the name of the book was. I think it was like Financial Shenanigans. So I read all these other books, didn't work, right? The only book that happened to work was that one. And how they explained it was they gave case studies of all the financial frauds that's ever happened in our societies, mostly America and here. And then gave examples of how they fudged the numbers for the particular aspect of the financial reports. That's how I learned it. So I was like, say, N1, it was just, marking, if I, correct me if I'm wrong, they were marking the transactions from customers into the business like a bank, options or something as actual income. So they just bloated the income by like, 10 folds, 100 folds without actually having earned that income.
Yeah.
Like, how did you learn it?
Yeah, I mean, that's a very Asian way to learn it, I'd say. I mean, like, look, so that mentoring group, they had a CPA as part of the group who specialized in sitting down with you and explaining your numbers to you. And so he sat down with our profit and loss and our balance sheet and explained to us how it worked. And I wouldn't say that we understood it straight away, but then they explained how the way that we quote and use markup and margin, how that affects our profit and loss, what our break even is, because there's so much jargon in the finance world, right? Because there's so many applications for it.
Yes.
But for every business, there's a few key metrics that really, really matter. And so for trades businesses, there's a few numbers and terms that you should really, really know and understand how they work.
What are they?
Okay, so you need to know your profit and loss. You need to know revenue, gross margin, net margin, break even, and then I like to say cash days, which is your creditor days minus your debtor days. So like, are you getting paid quicker than you're paying people, which is really important in construction because payment terms are pretty long generally. Like especially in commercial construction, they're 30, 45, 60 days sometimes. And so managing cash flow is a really big thing. So there's a lot of terms you can learn out there, but I would say those 6 terms, if you know what those numbers are in your business and how they're influenced, and there's only a few things you can do to move those numbers up or down, you'll get a very well-rounded view of your business financially.
That's cool. What was like the major, what other major breakthroughs did you have to make your business succeed?
Yeah. So there's a lot of really tangible ones. And I mentioned before, knowing who our ideal client was massive for us because we were working for anyone and everyone. And it's hard enough to run a business as it is. It's really hard to run a business that has to service 5 sectors of the market you're working in and 5 different types of clients and provide value. And there's all different pricing structures and margins. It's just tough, and so many small businesses fall into that because, they're coming from a place of scarcity and I need the work, so I'm just going to take it on. When in reality, there's plenty of work within, one niche. And there's that saying, the riches is in the niches. And that's how the Americans say the word niche.
It's very true. Yeah. No.
But that was a huge thing for us. And I would say like that was obviously apart from knowing our numbers, that was the thing that turned the business around for us. So, how do we identify our ideal client profile? It was like, we looked at the jobs that we had done and we just asked ourselves, which projects did we enjoy doing the most and which ones did we make the most money out of? And which ones do those align with? And we looked at them and they were all the commercial fencing projects that we had done, all the security fencing projects for commercial builders. And so we decided like, what would it look like if we just work for those builders? And we said, that sounds great to us. That's a business we'd love to have. And so again, it wasn't overnight because the sales cycle of a commercial project, you've got a tendering process and it can be quite a long time. So it's not like overnight we can go and win a bunch of commercial projects, but we move forward with the intention of like in the next 12 to 18 months, we're going to have only commercial projects on our books and we're going to phase out all of the other types of projects that we're doing. And so that for us was huge because then we could start tailoring the business towards that type of client. What's the pricing structure look like for a tender and a commercial builder? What do they value? What type of utes and machinery and equipment do we need for that type of client? And we just started focusing on getting really, really good at servicing that type of client. And that's how we became really, really profitable.